Welcome back to another episode of A Gift from Adversity. My name is Juri Love. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are recording episode 155. Before I introduce my guest, I want to introduce my book, which is the same title as this podcast. It's called A Gift from Adversity, and it's available on Amazon. The subtitle of this book is Overcoming Sexual Abuse, Domestic Violence, Bullying, and Homelessness. So please check it out. You can get a copy on Amazon. After I published this book, I got a lot of comments from all over the world, people sharing their adversity and stories. And I felt compelled to start this podcast. And I'm very grateful to have wonderful guests from all over the world. And today we have exciting guests for our episode 155. So let's invite our guest.
Hello,
Hello,
Juri.
thank you so much for coming in today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, so thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So can you please tell us who you are and then where you're coming in from today and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Sam Shelley. They call me Baba Sam, the Miracle Man, but we'll get into this later. So, what I really do, if you see, my company is Beyond Head Trash, and I'm here in New York City. Basically, the head trash is all these negative thoughts that we have that we're not good enough, we're not worthy. It's all this stuff that's creating stress, worries. All of this stuff needs to be thrown out because beyond our head trash, beyond our thoughts, is our divine essence. So we forget that, who we really are, that we believe that we're our identity, in my case, my diagnosis.
And you said you're coming in from where?
New York City.
New York City. Perfect. And do you have any social media or website that people can follow and learn more?
Yeah, so from beyondheadtrash.com, they can learn everything about me, what I do, the work with the Beyond Head Trash, finding our own inner healer and our own vibrant soul. So I have that, and on my site you can find, a lot of resources there. My book is there. There's some videos there, and it's just a reminder that, I went through a lot of stuff to see and learn that my diagnosis was information, not my destiny. And we'll talk about this, that for many years my diagnosis determined my destiny, and it created all sorts of issues.
Well, thank you so much. And people, please check out his website, beyondheadtrash.com, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So let's start our first question, which is the adversity. So should I call you Baba Sam?
Yeah, that's fine. You can call me anything. It doesn't. I'm not really attached to the name.
Okay. So would you please share to our audience what was your adversity?
Yeah, so it really began for me at age 6. It was the last day of first grade, and for those familiar with that ice cream truck, the sound of the ice cream truck that they play was the end of the first day. I heard the ice cream truck, so I begged mom for money. Then I ran out and got my ice cream. After I was getting my ice cream, walking on the ice cream truck, a van ran over me. So my adversity began at age 6 when I was run by a van that created, a broken hip, broken elbow, head trauma, nearly bled out. That was the start of all my health challenges. Began at age 6, being hit by that van. So after they hit by the van, one of the things they found from head trauma that they know today that can lead into bipolar or mental disorders and diseases. So I was going through grade school, high school, you know, education as an undiagnosed bipolar. So it was a very, very difficult time going through life as a bipolar. And there was really no help coming for me on that. They didn't really understand what was going on. Like if I would act up in class in high school, I remember this one instance where I was being manic, really acting up. They sent me to the principal's office. The principal asked me if I was smoking marijuana. I said no, and he sent me back to class. It wasn't until my 20s when I was suicidal that I was eventually diagnosed with bipolar. But at this time, besides the bipolar, I had chronic migraines. I had a psoriasis on about a third of my body. Then eventually the psoriasis got into my joints. So that was psoriatic arthritis. And I had the PTSD from the accident. Then at age 37, I lost the ability to walk from multiple sclerosis. So that was my adversity, pretty much being sick and disabled mentally and physically over 38 years, beginning at age 6.
Wow, I am so sorry. I cannot imagine at 6 years old having that big accident and having to have this diagnosis and undiagnosis and misunderstanding and a lot happened. I'm very sorry. Um, let's dive into a little bit when you are 6 years old. I know you quickly mentioned about the van. So what happened? The van hit you and then you went under the van or you kind of like thrown out?
Well, I think what I remember of it, because I was really knocked out from it, what the impression I got was that the van ran over me. It didn't throw me; it ran over me, and I nearly bled out from that. I had a lot of injuries. So, like I said, it was the end of first grade. I eventually returned back to school for fourth grade.
Wow, that is really crazy. So, what is your memory and the PTSD look like for people who obviously never went through some accident like that? What does trigger you?
Well, the thing was, after that accident, I had a lot of guilt and shame because I could see that van coming toward me, but I couldn't evade it. And it wasn't until later in life, actually not that long ago, when I learned that they have the school speed limits in the US at like 15 miles per hour. And that's even too fast for really young children because we don't learn the skill of avoidance to our late teen years. So at 6 years old, at 6 years old, I had no skills of avoidance. Something had coming right at me. I didn't know how to move out of the way. It was just overwhelming. So I saw this van speeding at me, but I couldn't move. I was just paralyzed in that. So it always felt like guilt and shame that I didn't get out of the way. So it was always, triggering and always, just really start up a lot of issues. And just to understand that. And when we're annoyed as adults driving so slow through the school zones that even 15 miles per hour is too much for somebody under 10 because they don't have that skills to avoid whatsoever. So that's even 15 miles per hour is a little bit too fast to understand. Kids don't know how to get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely not. I'm extremely sorry. And then was there any justice to the van driver um, in the court or anything that you know of?
Yeah, what I remember of this, and things have changed quite a bit. What I remember from this, like all the medicals bills and all that were taken care of from the insurance company, but for the pain and suffering and future health issues, there was no clauses for any future health concerns. For pain and suffering, I got $1,500. That was it.
Wow, that is insane. And then you are 6 years old. And then how old are you right now?
Right now, yeah, I'm 58 right now.
58 young. I'm 48. So that was like 5 decades ago. And then that just really changed your trajectory of your life, the entire, pretty much a lot of part of it. And then I can't believe that um, other conditions came along. Do you think that is related from the 6 years old like accident, like that kind of led to all this health um issues, you think, or not related?
Yeah, yeah, because they've done studies now. They know from traumatic brain injuries in young adults and kids, like 5 to 8 years old, traumatic brain injuries lead to mental health issues. they have that. That's a proven fact. They've shown that the data is there. So that really started the bipolar. You know, that was a direct result of the accident was the bipolar. And when you're this bipolar, you're very critical, you're very hard on yourself. So you're always not good enough, you're always not worthy, you're not deserving. And you get this really poisonous inner environment. And so when I'm working with individuals today that have autoimmune diseases, I can see that they're filled with a lot of self-judgment and a lot of self-criticism because I was doing this myself. And I ended up with three autoimmune diseases: the psoriasis, the psoriatic arthritis, then eventually the multiple sclerosis, were all autoimmune diseases. And it's all because my own inner environment, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't worthy enough, filled up with a lot of guilt and shame from the accident. So it really created a lots and lots of issues that we don't even think about. Even this negative self-talk to herself is so poisonous.
Like, what are the voices that you hear when you talk about beyond head trash? What are the head trash talk that you've done it yourself? You've heard like inside. Like, I know you mentioned one about guilt and shame about the man. How couldn't I avoid it? But what else do you remember, especially when you were in the middle school, high school, when you're younger?
Well, it's always the sense that you're not good enough. You're always judging yourself against your peers. You're always comparing yourself. And it's just not believing and having that faith in yourself. So it's always that not good enough voice. And then later in life, it changed to what else is going to go wrong, because my health was in decline. So I was always in the mindset, what's going to go wrong today? I would wake up and like, oh, it's a new day, new possibilities. And that was like, I woke up and like, what's going to go wrong today? Am I going to have a migraine today? Am I going to be able to walk today? And it was just that world. It was very a challenging world to be in that. And this constantly beating myself up with my own language and being identified with that voice as me.
That's really extremely hard. I understand that about the head trash and then like, talking down yourself, not believing, but a lot of times that um we don't know how to get out of it. We don't know how to get to the other side of it. And then when you are diagnosed with these conditions, like what was your feeling? Do you remember when the doctor told you like you have these conditions? Like were you upset, like devastated, disbelief?
Yeah, it's really hard to explain. Like for most of the diagnosis I would get, I would do what everyone would do, read everything I could about that and all the medicines, which really ingrained that story that I have this forever. I'm going to need to take this medicine forever. So it just really strengthened my story, my head trash. It just made it stronger. What I remember specifically was the diagnosis for multiple sclerosis, because there's no specific test for MS. So one day I had the worst migraine of my life on a Friday afternoon at work. I called my neurologist up for migraines. I told them what was going on because my whole left side of the body was going numb. I was having the aura. I was really having a lot of difficulties. And he was thinking, well, it's probably a migraine. I'll prescribe something stronger. So somehow I got myself home from work. I got this stronger medicine. And then I had an appointment Monday to see him. And when he saw me, he immediately ordered an MRI. So I got this MRI, and then he's like, "Oh, we're seeing something in the MRI. We're admitting you to the hospital." So by Wednesday, I'm in the hospital, unable to walk, unable to see. It was really bad. So I'm in the hospital now for about 2, 3 weeks. And because MS is a process of elimination, they were testing me for anything and everything. And what I remember, it was like on a weekend, and the fill-in doctor or whoever it wasn't my standard doctor that would come in to check on me. I remember this one doctor coming in, doing his routine check. He's just checking things over. He's like, "Oh, we've concluded that you have multiple sclerosis," and promptly walked out the room. So at this time, in this time dealing with that diagnosis, I was already bipolar. Then you give somebody this news and you don't even talk to them, see how they're feeling. You just say, "Oh, you've concluded you have MS. We're going to send you to we're going to send you to rehab Monday," and just leave the room. And that's basically it. And I was just like stuck with these emotions. Like, how do you process that? Because MS for most people is a really devastating disease that you don't escape from, you don't get away from. But fortunately, I was able to. But during that time, it was very, very difficult. Going from worst migraine in my life to 3 days later to be in the hospital, unable to walk, see, the whole body's shutting down. Very, very difficult. So then it was just, then living as a disabled man, physically disabled. Before I had mental problems with the bipolar, now I was physically disabled from the MS. And we can talk about this. That later I saw MS as a blessing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It is so devastating. I understand about the doctors are very, I wouldn't say robotic, but like routine. So like to them, MS is okay, another diagnosis, right? And then I was actually bleeding out from miscarriage, and then I lost more than 50% of blood, and I was in ER. And then when the ER doctor, you know how it takes time for the ER doctor to come to your space. So when he came, and before that they did a blood test, and then he was like so casual, and then he's like, oh, you lost more than 50% of blood in a couple hours, your kidney, and then lungs, and then heart, and then brain was shut down. Would you like to do blood transfusion? There's a risk of hepatitis and then HIV for like a percentage. I'll come back and then ask you what you want to do in about like 5 minutes or something. Just let me know. Like, what did you just tell me? Am I gonna die in like a few hours if I so doctors are used to it, and then you just like, I'm like, okay, wow, what
Mm,
an information, it's kind of weird.
mm, yeah.
But in medical field it's like that, but like spiritual field it's a little bit different. And then it's the mentally, obviously it's a shock, and then go what if, and then the worries, and then what's gonna happen in my like rest of my life, like what I'm gonna do, and then those kind of like dilemma in your head is just really hard to deal with.
Yeah, that's the thing that you get all this diagnosis, and most diagnoses like bipolar, migraines, multiple sclerosis, cancer, whatever it may be, they're usually pretty devastating. So, and we get really attached to that diagnosis that that's our destiny. And I really we'll talk about this later, that it's not your destiny. Your diagnosis is ultimately information, and how you process that information is really up to you. But we just need to be mindful of how the mind always looks for the worst case scenarios, what's going to go wrong, and all these issues. But we need to step back and say, why is this true for me? Why do I have to experience this? So that's where what I was really going through was, I lived with multiple sclerosis for 7 years, and I had all these other ailments. I ultimately had like 7 different diagnoses. I was taking 13 daily medications. I had a cane, a cooling vest. I had all the stuff. And now it's a little unreal. It's a little surreal that I have no health issues today.
So before we go into another question, which is the tools that you use to overcome, will you please tell us like, did you so when you have this, when you're disabled and had this like tools to help you mobilize, um, did you experience any discrimination, stares, or like any like people said something mean to you or anything?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. So the MS really wasn't stairs that I remember. What I remember with the MS was, see, we have with the MS, people like open doors for you and things like this. So it gets into the benefits of MS. I'm not responsible. I have to worry about opening doors and all of this. So it's people aren't staring at you. They're more like opening doors and seeing like how they can help you. And so that also adds to the story that oh, I have MS. I'm not supposed to be able to open doors, not supposed to be able to take care of myself. And it just amplifies that story. So it wasn't really, I didn't find any discrimination with that because at that time I was working for Johnson and Johnson. So it wasn't a big deal because that's what they do. They're in the health space. They know that's part of life. So it was no problem going back to work. It wasn't an issue because they just understood that and that's just the way it was. But I was out of work for like 6 months because of what I was going through. But they were very understanding about it, very good about
Wow, that's very impressive. Um, so, well, thank you so much. Um, it's very hard to understand how the 6 years old vein crash lead to these everything what ifs. What if it didn't happen, but it happened? So then you have to deal with it, not the driver, but you as a child, and then as somebody who have to deal with it daily. Unfortunately, we have experienced something similar in 2023 with my daughter. So it's been really hard, really, really hard. Um, a van crashed into the child watch and then really injured, like bullet out like a lot of kids with glasses. The van maybe probably like I don't know how many miles the driver said brake or axle. He made a mistake and he just slammed right over where kids were.
it.
And
Hmm.
luckily they ran, but then it's I had no idea how this one accident can change the entire life and the perspective, and then how it's almost like you had life before and a life after.
Hmm.
And what people don't understand is, that one accident can sustain so long. And unfortunately, that I've seen some people who went through extreme trauma or adult and then still getting affected, especially anniversary is hard. Like it's just so hard to go through the day that happened and then that occurs like, another years and stuff. Did you
Hmm.
have that kind of anniversary um pain?
Yeah, not so much anniversary pain. It's just, like I said, right now I'm on the other side of it, so I see things differently. So I don't really like. It's just amazing to me, that like a few weeks from now, like in 2004, I went through the MS experience. So it's been 21 years since I had that experience. Literally, it's happened around, yeah, mid-March back in 2004 when we're taping this. So it's like 21 years ago. So it's been a long time. And now I've been healthy since 2011. So 14 years. It's a little surreal to look back and like, wow, I lost the ability to walk. I couldn't see right. The whole body shutting down. It just seems surreal because everything has changed now. Everything has flipped.
So for those of you who are tuning in now, it's episode 155 of A Gift from Adversity. I'm having a wonderful guest from New York, Baba Sam, and then his website is beyondheadtrash.com. And he went through extreme trauma since age of 6. So I appreciate this episode. Um, but anyways, let's dive into the second question, which is the tools that you use to overcome. And then what I like about this question consistently is that people who've been through so many adversities really came up with creative ways to overcome this trauma and then tragedy. And something that I'm really focused on for this podcast is that people can take something away from a real people who went through extreme challenge, that some people say, oh, go see a therapist, do this, but unless you really experience it, you don't know. So could you please tell us what are the tools that you use that you were able to overcome these extreme challenges?
Yeah, so for me, where I mentioned before that ultimately multiple sclerosis turned out to be a blessing because as a bipolar, I would sometimes get mania and I would run all over the place. Well, with the MS and losing the ability to walk, I could no longer run all over the place. So I was really forced to be a couch potato because with multiple sclerosis, you get a lot of chronic fatigue with this. So I was able to work because I really didn't like the ideas of going on disability and that being my life. I just wanted to be useful to society. I wanted to make a difference. So I continued to work, and that was a little bit of a challenge. But after work, I would just come home and just crash on the sofa because of the chronic fatigue. Well, it's my journey is a little strange. So I was dealing with this chronic fatigue. So I was a couch potato. Well, one of the things I used to watch was ghost hunting shows, but it was TV. I didn't know if ghost hunting was real or fake or not. It was just entertainment to me. So I used to watch these shows. But one day I saw a tweet from a ghost hunter. Hey, we're having this event in Philadelphia. And it's like, oh, okay. This time I was living in the Philadelphia area. It's like, oh, I can go to that. I can get a hotel room. I can stay nearby because it's in August. It's hot. I'm not going to last too long with the fatigue. So, okay, I sign up for this ghost hunt, but I don't know if it's real or fake. So I'm just doing my research. Okay, if I'm going to have any experiences here, where's the place most likely for it to happen? So they had all these groups going to various areas, and like, nope, we're going to the casemates. So I went to the area of Fort Mifflin called the casemates. And the best I can describe is for most of the time, it was pretty boring. Not much was happening there. But one thing that really got my attention, I was sitting on a bench. Then I felt somebody sit right next to me, but there was nobody there. I felt like a ghost sit right next to me. And then I felt this overwhelming sense of dread come over me. And it's like, well, that was weird. That was unusual. So I did had some other little experiences there, but that was pretty much the experience that really stuck with me. Somebody sitting next to me that wasn't there. So so I was really pondering that, okay, well, who talks to ghosts? Mediums. Okay, so I'll read a book from a medium. But this time in my life, I can only read from maybe about 5, 10 minutes at a time, or it would trigger a migraine. So it was very slow reading these various books from mediums, trying to understand this world of spirits, ghosts, whatever you wish to call them. Well, one book talked about how they use meditation to raise their vibration to talk to these spirits, these ghosts. So, okay, but one of the things they're just talking about that, but then they start listing the benefits of meditation. And one of the benefits of meditation was inner peace. I'm like, I need inner peace. I was so stressed out, so overwhelmed with life. I had absolutely no belief that I could heal myself. I realized that was my diagnosis was my destiny, that I am destined to be using a cane for the rest of my life. Maybe by the time I reached my 50s, I'll be in a wheelchair chair permanently or a nursing home because my health was really in a decline. So that's the reality I was looking at. So they talk about meditation equals inner peace. And they didn't really have many instructions in this book. It was literally a page and a half on meditation, which was perfect. I didn't talk about this, but I had bipolar and OCD. So I was really obsessed about things. So if somebody told me how to meditate, I'd be like so focused on my posture. Am I sitting properly? Are my hands proper? Am I breathing proper? I've been so obsessed with those rules, I would have never gotten out of the mind. But I had the impression, though, that meditation means you stop thinking. For some reason, I just picked up meditation means you stop thinking. So there was really no instructions that I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. That's my practice. I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. So I'm sitting there in meditation. Basically, my eyes are closed and I'm just relaxing. That's basically the instructions that I had. So what does the mind do? Mind starts thinking. That's what the mind does. That starts thinking. So I'm sitting in meditation, and mind's thinking like, well, stop thinking. We're meditating. Mind thinking, stop thinking. Okay, then by the fourth day of this, May the 5th, I realized, wait a second, if I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm not my thoughts. This was a huge realization to me that I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. we have to understand, if we go back into my 20s, I took my thoughts as truth, and I nearly killed myself twice because of those thoughts. So when I suddenly realized now that I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts, that changed everything for me. I was no longer trapped in the mind, you could say, or trapped into the identity, the stories, whatever you want to call that. So the next question was, well, if I'm not my thoughts, well, then who am I? If I'm not these thoughts, well, who am I? So I sat with that question now. Now I was sitting for 5 minutes twice a day with this question, once in the morning, once in the evening. So I'm sitting with this question of like, okay, well, who am I? So one evening after my practice, I just heard a voice say perfect spirit. I'm like, that's it. My spirit is perfect. It's simply the body and mind that are damaged. Then I just felt this great sense of peace come over me. And I just had a knowing that all is well. And all sense of fear about my health was simply gone. I knew it was all over that day. So within a month of using meditation, I had a self realization of knowing that I'm not these thoughts, I'm not this body, that I am spirit. And then I had what's called a spontaneous healing at that point. And I knew it was all over, but it took the body some time to catch up to that. But it was pretty quick though, because this was in this was August 2011, and I just found the medical record from my psychiatrist that I was seeing for bipolar in October of 2011, and for the first time ever, he wrote on there bipolar in remission. So it was like a proof to me that I was going the right direction. So I was just following this voice, this knowing on how to recover the body. So one day I just had a knowing that I need to do yoga. So my mind had all these excuses that you have no balance, you have no flexibility, and the mind would just keep going with all these stories. But I ignored the mind. It's like I need to do yoga. I had that knowing. Signed up for yoga the next day. Then 6 months later of doing yoga 3 to 4 times a week, I didn't need my cane anymore. The body was starting to get back into balance. And after that voice, it took about 14 months, maybe 15 months for the body to fully recover from all the damage that was done. So I was really curious. Like I just found the medical record with bipolar remission. And one of the things I remember was I had three neurologists at this time, two for the MS, one for the migraines. Well, I was canceling all my doctor's appointments. Well, I made one last appointment with one of my MS doctors. So when I'm fully recovered, I make an appointment with the doctor. It's like, before I see you, I want to get all the testing done. I want to get the MRIs. I want to get the blood work. I want to get everything done. Let's see what he has to say about this. So I walk into his office. He pulls up my chart and he's like, well, your scans are clean. Your blood work's nearly perfect. Then he does this physical exam. He's like, all I see is a non-specific hand tremor. Then it was the last appointment for the day. So he sat there and questioned me for 45 minutes, trying to quantify what I did. I said, I did meditation, I had a mindfulness practice, and I did yoga. And that's basically what I did. And I was just following my own intuition or my own instincts on how to recover the body. But my practice was simply 10 minutes a day. And that's what I'm doing today. Is only 10 minutes a day is what I do. Just keeping myself present. And that's the mindfulness, that we're either lost in these thoughts or that we're aware of this moment. So I just learned to be aware of this moment. And like I said, I only read a page and a half of meditation. I never had a spiritual teacher. I need, if I had a spiritual teacher at that time, I would never escape the mind. I've been, like I said, so focused on the rules. But that's basically my healing journey. But it was never an intent to heal. It was just to, I thought that was impossible because I was so caught up in my diagnosis, my labels. This was impossible to heal. So I actually healed through inner peace. Through peace, the body transformed because I was no longer engaging in the mind, which was creating so much stress, anxiety, worry. I wasn't entertaining that. I was tapping into this deeper wisdom that we all have, that we're all perfect spirit. So if we go beyond that head trash, who are we? We're spirit. We're that vibrant soul. And we have all that power within us to change anything in our life.
Well, thank you very much. My mom is actually a yoga teacher and a rock singer in Japan in 71. When she came to America a long time ago, I mean, probably 2007, she had the shoulder problem when she was 50 years old. And she couldn't just move like from here to here. And then she met yoga. And then after yoga, she's just now doing headstanding, 71 years old, doing the rock concert. And then all this like weird diagnosis that she had, like probably maybe diabetic or whatever, it's gone. It's so powerful. Like sometimes like the yoga, the mindset meditation in yoga and the yoga practice, like breathing into different poses, and then helped her somehow. Somehow she's capable now, and then somehow she's started a yoga studio in Japan and then teaching yoga right now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, yoga really transforms, and then the mindfulness practice that comes with yoga, that you become fully aware of the body and its movement, and you're focused on that breath. So it's like a moving meditation. It's really a beautiful thing.
So do you still practice yoga? Do you still do yoga?
No, I haven't done yoga lately. I did yoga for a couple years. I did yoga for about 3, 4 years, and eventually moved to New York City. Now I go to a normal gym and really work on, the physical strength. But what I found in New York City, I didn't really find a studio that I liked. I had a studio in Pennsylvania that was very, very traditional yoga, like the real, because it was brought over from the Swati region of India, and the teacher could trace her lineage back like 2,500, 3,000 years in India. Like they were the original meditation teachers. So she brought those teachings into her studio. And I haven't found anything like that in New York. They're making it too athletic. They're just doing too something that wasn't the traditional path. And it was really learning all those traditional arms of the meditation, the poses, the mantras that I had in Pennsylvania. I didn't find that in New York City.
I see. Well, thank you very much for coming to A Gift from Adversity today and then sharing your story. So my last question is, what was the gift that came from your adversity?
Yeah, the biggest gift for me was the multiple sclerosis because it forced me to slow down and to confront myself, to see, like, hey, I'm just dealing with me now. I can't run around all over the place. I'm just a couch potato. And the thing that really came to it was just being curious, having that curiosity of like, I experienced the paranormal. What's this all about? But what I really want to leave people is just see your diagnosis as information. It's not your destiny. But we get locked into this because from my own doctors, my own experiences, from my own readings, it's all negative bias that these are all the things that are going to go wrong. We don't say, oh, I got multiple sclerosis. Well, what's the positive outcomes from that? Who's recovered from that? We don't seek out those stories, but there's a handful of people out there that have recovered from multiple sclerosis. But yet you will find hundreds of thousands of stories about that's incurable. Well, why is that true for you? If you practice like a meditation, a mindfulness, or a yoga, how will the body respond? And especially if you stop engaging in that mind that tells the story that you're incurable. Well, is that really true for you? We don't know till we start exploring. And we really want to get out of the process of that we need to heal ourselves or fix ourselves, because I see that this becomes a form of head trash. It creates a mental interference. It's really about diving deeper into, well, what's right for you? You're the one that lives in your body. What is right for you? And doing those things that feel right to you, not going from the mind for validation, permission, like do yoga, try meditation, keep it simple.
Well, thank you very much for your beautiful answers and then being very vulnerable and open to it. So, my bonus question is that if anyone's out there listening to this podcast and that person went through similar adversity as you, what is your biggest advice for them?
The biggest advice is just find a way to get yourself into this moment. If you go to my website, you'll see a thing called Beyond Diagnosis there. On that page, there's a free session we can have together, a healing session. And what I discover from this is I get people to experience who they really are, their perfect spirit. I even had meditators sit with me and they said, I never felt like a peace like this before. When I go, that deep, deep sense of peace is you. I'm just pulling away that head trash so you can experience you.
Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Jory. I really enjoy this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience for listening to another episode of A Gift from Adversity. My name is Juri Love. I'm your host, and we have more guests coming in, so stay tuned. See you next time.